냠제 점보도 유미종 좀은 점보가 자다 다그러 다른 전도 실문도 스톰마도 제잔라기 숑살.
To liberate sentient beings, please generate the supreme bodhicitta before we start today's teaching. Now, let's first take a moment to recite the sacred Tibetan transmission of the profound Lotus Sutra.
산지 랑숑 제닛 강강나와 argerjanji gerlongdang gerlongmadang gemnyandang gemnyanmarnam mataper ngartonglenam manyongwa flapa jigrarnam flapa jigrardambanam nibandadam tongjerane kyunam yongsu repi shira shibiblojan tedagandong ganga chuda nyambara jerwayi tedaglano gewa temedate kurji nigmanyadam kenesa jigdan gombongi jamsarayan ngayin korna lagbaran kora shimbame chatak barte nyambo mayin kanmida njera dodok nyambo raptani jewa dambar chubsang sanje daga tablam kebab jabchakta mayi rzuqba sanje chuna chaksum ba chandra layang nyonjik shariwa dedok shobab zamba chandraram kena chukchak shewa muba tatat ba dedok ngonchate ngonchagewa chibshi ba le no nazo dagnam kenese ngebe zigdang shenno nazo ji chukchak dedok kongdo chebrabshi de ngene jadang hwayang jachak semchin dedang garashi mdor de zigsa mdor de devshin zigsib chabagang shada devshin wada kerur mabshong dang langzhi devshin tanla waba dang hwayang nyuk bebjar nazo namji shada mamke kand man lam ngô ga jiang sang ji xue mang la xue de jiang ko ra chao jiang shen de ding wa de lam nyang da ran ye ra ta na sang ji xie rap de do ji xie ra da rang zhong wa ne tam ge de ke jing sang ji se yang zhou ji de nam lan re jing ma song ji xie ji na jiu ba di la ji da ra zi de ne don cha do Tarwa tena gyalak dang to pe devshir te yang i parandar sha to ngayib tamba yanlag gopo yang samjen tanda tadang to lev sha ta dar tar tab jib shimb yishi la rab dag zib shir ngib sha to kang tak tak dar nam tak nambar tak jirwa sarak sang rab ta tang wa sang je che sang jib shi wa mang la lak shi ba te tak la na rab jim dor nama sha ta dar tar te tak sambar zo ba tang nambar tak pi sir dang dan jirba Dedalena Mawon Tinayang, Panjang Sivi San Ginger Jixon, Tunin Jomchok San Ginger Nyamte, Tamsi Shendal Gavi Kabarangir, Dedak Shopar Namjang Eshine, Shendar Jebim Durdi, Rapta Shadan, Dertan Jempinyang to Dedale, Kantang Aib Tambanda to Ba, Tsibjad. Tsibjak Chikzam Tuba Zongyang Rong, Tamjat Tezum Mebar Shanchivan Ger, Tagba, Tatbarna Kanton Bar Kemchor Namji Tamke, Makto Bara Tabachite Nisa Yodmayan, Jirtendana Namyang Samda Meda Sanjir Namji Shif Tambishara, Jirtendayang Jirten Gombonjong, Shawak Chite Nisa Yodmayan, Sanji Tagba Mambe Manjen To Ramshondanya. Chila Neba Dang, Sanji Chirtawa Dang Chindrawa, Topnam Santar Namtar Wombo Nam, Devshin, Tedag Nyala Semchin Rapta, Jo, Shanchur Dharme Tamba Topnis, Taba Manla Semchin, Chibko Nanda Nangai, Loba Mayende, Zerni Niba, Ngala Yuparangir, Ngala Sirna Tona Jones, Me, Ngalam Chotome, Chondocha, Medar de Butchurnam Tamjidang Evshete, Devshin Ruar Tobeng. Sang Chirtam Zanunga, Chirtam Zanam Jinang Agente, Jirtenando, Tamsha Rana Shida, Trocha, Japcha, Mem Danda, Chuji Ranjan, Shirjan Doshado, and the Nim Sem de Shariva, Samchisanim Sanji, Ziganja, Dagu Ranshon Jirten, Rigba, Tirtrijani Semchin. Kunjer nyama chirtaram thongja chirtaram sambata ngai ngancho de chirtaram nokbate ngai molam te to yongzo te shanchib santi nena maftan to semchen arnam la shanchib damki chi ngena tirkid armena shariv maji semchen namnan dar nyu te ngai logshin zambar german ger te dong danji tsirda ngeshi te tser ngamar shoba namma shada dobe Yondar Namla Chapshe Jang, Tripip Jarjang, Tumum Nubar Nama Tedondorji, Ngandru raptor ton roa chigda kanda nyomomba ta chote da shirin shirin pera jeda zonum chongwer dengar kanji zir taan tabur tagda ngar nambran chaga yo tame dan tevjin yo me dan tarjir chigchan nilab tenez ngubo me la ngubur zinchang ne vjang raka jang loshid ngarjir chana shiba tonyon yombo yo shedar nama tser shewa chagton namyang na dedang sanje janda matuso ngayi tapki tela shari wa de ngaram tarataga shonshi tirkidar me semjil de ngar zarwam tongni na dedam nyan deba Невероятно, дартыргена чурнамда да кано донне равже мнян дебарашер сандече девшөр кон зоне фшематики цела рдярашеда табасамда кано тамбана гаи тамге цырди тенжарте табачите девжин цырянгчи дертенден бар намжившабачи кандыр лала тезум 요바 дага тезум задан девжин сомньор пон жанда максон жиртен жембарнам табанданак жирте нис Med tabanda chite anis met
Today we are going to learn and discuss the important Lotus Sutra of Buddhism. We are now beginning on the very important second chapter of the sacred Lotus Sutra text here today. The entire comprehensive lecture will definitely take about 1 full hour exactly. Some of you are here specifically for spiritual pilgrimage or casual sightseeing purposes. If you don't wish to listen carefully, you may leave right at the very beginning. It's not very appropriate to simply get up and leave in the middle of the ongoing lecture. Earlier, we had already mentioned that the 5,000 truly unworthy listeners had already departed from the premises. So, for those individuals who do not possess faith or are not feeling particularly well at this present moment in time, it's perfectly fine for you to leave at the very beginning of the lecture. Generally speaking, in Buddhist teachings, it's best to listen from the very beginning to the very end and complete the entire session. Even a single class should be attended in its entirety. Because each of us has different karma and different circumstances, it may be difficult for everyone to listen to an entire teaching from start to finish. Or there may indeed be some significant difficulties at the present moment. If you really don't have enough time available today, it's not very appropriate or respectful to leave in the middle suddenly. Today, we are discussing the profound and significant teachings of the Lotus Sutra. In the second chapter of this very important Lotus Sutra, earlier, the Buddha used prose to clearly and eloquently convey his message and explain the entire process of the profound and wondrous Dharma in its entirety. Now he is very carefully using these beautiful poetic verses to explain it quite clearly and thoroughly to absolutely everyone who is present here once again today, and very patiently indeed. As mentioned yesterday, if one does not seek ultimate nirvana, it can also be called an arrogance that is born of spiritual progress and development. There are also some individuals who, during their own personal practice and spiritual cultivation, have not attained enlightenment but believe they have, spiritual arrogance. The above discussion thoroughly explored the pervasive situation of such profound arrogance. Now let us talk about this matter further, presenting it in the eloquent form of sacred verses. The enlightened Buddha told all his devoted followers that certain bhikshus and bhikshunis regrettably harbor this deeply rooted arrogance. Earlier we talked about what is meant by arrogance born of spiritual progress. It refers to those who believe they possess wisdom and faith and even consider themselves Buddhists. This includes all of us practitioners, or even those who are monastics and so on. But in reality, if we measure ourselves according to the standards set by the Buddhist scriptures, we actually do not possess such a profound and complete realization, nor do we hold any of the necessary and appropriate qualifications. Such people are called those with arrogance born of spiritual progress. Therefore, some bhikshus and bhikshunis also harbor this kind of arrogance. There are also some devoted upasakas and upasikas, and it is true that some of these upasakas are also marked by arrogance and conceit. Upasikas do not have faith. They do not believe in the Mahayana Dharma or the Lotus Sutra. Some of them may have had faith at the beginning, but later on, because their faith was quite unstable and wavering indeed, there were actually about 5,000 such disciples among the entire fourfold assembly. These 5,000 people were completely unaware of their own serious faults clearly. Moreover, the precepts they observed were also deeply flawed. In other words, even their basic precepts were deeply tainted here. Their precepts were quite impure, and their views were also very impure clearly. Moreover, they stubbornly clung to their own serious faults, refusing to awaken completely today, because certain prejudices can be extremely dangerous indeed. No matter who it is, if one believes that their own way is correct, then no matter how much others try to reason with them, they will not be swayed. Even if it is in front of the Buddha at that time, there were people without faith and with arrogance born from spiritual progress. Moreover, not only did they not believe in the Buddha's sacred words at all, they even slandered them harshly. Such were these 5,000 people exactly. These 5,000 people desperately tried to conceal their own serious faults or mistakes completely. Some of them did not even keep their basic precepts very well, and their views were also incorrect. They often hid their faults and could not see the virtues of others. As a result, they were unable to continue listening. They could not accept the Mahayana teachings. They eventually withdrew. So the Buddha said, these people of rather little wisdom have already left. They have already departed. Actually, this is a truly good thing. Even during the Buddha's own time, this kind of situation would indeed happen. When first entering such a great Dharma, some people whose conditions in various aspects were not sufficient had already left. When they left, the Buddha also said, well done, and highly praised their departure, because after they left, on the one hand, they themselves did not develop any wrong views during this entire process, and they also did not slander the sacred Dharma, the revered Buddha, or the precious three jewels. In this way, many potential faults and much negative karma are effectively avoided. So this is also very good. In the future, no matter what environment we find ourselves in, if we carefully listen to some profound Dharma teachings, whether it is the foundational teachings of the Śrāvaka or the more expansive and compassionate Mahayana teachings, some individuals may indeed develop a strong and sincere faith right from the very beginning. But in the end, they lose it, or some people may feel from the very beginning that something isn't quite right. And in such cases, it's also good for them to withdraw. The Dharma teacher should also allow this. So you can't say, after you've finished the class, you can't leave. It shouldn't be like that. Allowing them to leave is actually very good for them personally. Including this time, when we started teaching the profound Lotus Sutra, the actual scope of our teaching efforts this time and concurrently, the total number of attentive listeners should undoubtedly be among the very highest in the entire history of our teachings. I wouldn't dare say it's an extremely large number. However, since we are predominantly living in the modern internet era now, and also due to the fact that we know and interact with a significantly larger number of people than ever before, this time many individuals are having a great deal of confidence and are remarkably attentive to the details. But among them, quite a few may also have various discriminating thoughts. This is also good and quite inevitable. From this, you can also clearly perceive the deep faith and inherent wisdom of many individuals, as well as their fundamental attitudes in various significant aspects. All of this is readily apparent and visible. With such challenging conditions, if 5,000 people withdrew during the Buddha's time, in this present age of the Dharma's decline, especially for someone like me, if I am teaching the Lotus Sutra to others, if everyone were to leave, I think that would be understandable too, because I know what kind of person I am, and many of us also know how we truly and deeply compare to the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas. Everyone should be very clear about this as well. So sometimes such causes and conditions are actually very good and beneficial. As I mentioned just now, the Buddha, the enlightened one, told the fourfold assembly of his devoted disciples, it's actually quite good for some people to withdraw early here. The Buddha clearly said that among all the assemblies today, those who leave are like chaff, that is, dregs and husks. These people usually haven't engaged in much serious listening, contemplation, or practice at all. Under the Buddha's majestic and overwhelming power, these individuals cannot possibly stay for very long. In such circumstances, because the Buddha possesses extraordinary dignity, under this dignity, those without sufficient merit or the right conditions simply cannot remain. In the end, they truly have no other choice but to leave. So, people exactly like this have very little spiritual merit indeed here now. They are simply unable to accept such profound and vast wondrous teachings at all clearly. The above passage clearly explains that in the entire Lotus assembly today, some people's faith was quite unstable actually, or they were very arrogant completely, or their wisdom was not very deep at all. This particular group of people, at such a critical time, they would naturally withdraw completely. At that time, the Buddha also greatly praised this action. Next, the Buddha clearly said that in this sacred assembly there are no branches or leaves. In other words, there are no broken or withered branches and leaves, or you could say no extraneous branches and leaves. As mentioned earlier, the people present now should be considered genuinely authentic, true and legitimate vessels of the Dharma, truly embodying its essence. They have strong faith, deep wisdom, and the right spiritual conditions completely indeed. Generally speaking, when teaching any Dharma properly, at the very beginning, there may be some people who simply cannot accept it at all clearly. This is also truly the case with the esoteric teachings in our traditional Tibetan Buddhism today. There are also many profound teachings in Theravada Buddhism. When these profound teachings are expounded, many great masters, during the process of teaching, will also encounter people with very different mindsets. These mindsets are not only due to our own human factors, but also other influences. But also due to our hearts, as well as influences from non-human beings or karmic connections from past lives, many complex causes and conditions often indeed come together at such times. And whenever a truly great Dharma teaching appears, these are always present. When we perform empowerments in esoteric Buddhism, there are also many deeply significant and related rituals that are meticulously performed beforehand, as everyone widely knows. So, in the end, all the sacred ritual implements are truly very genuine and exceptionally pure. The Buddha told Shariputra, "You should listen attentively. The Dharma that the Buddha attained, one could say, was realized over hundreds of millions of kalpas, through countless rigorous ascetic practices and the perfection of the 6 paramitas and myriad virtuous deeds. There are countless skillful means. The Buddha expounded the profound Dharma to all sentient beings, not in the same way that ordinary worldly people talk or give lectures to others. We may not know the capacities of sentient beings and just speak directly like this, which in the end may not necessarily be beneficial to them. But what the Buddha taught, maybe on the surface, seem to be of no immediate benefit to someone, and they may even have different opinions or leave the assembly temporarily, but ultimately it is extremely meaningful for them. When he explained through various metaphors, words and conditions, there was not a single instance that was not beneficial to sentient beings. Therefore he used countless metaphors to expound the profound and wondrous Dharma to sentient beings. And within the minds of sentient beings there are all sorts of complex thoughts, as well as a wide variety of behaviors among sentient beings. Each sentient being's actions are also quite different. Moreover, there are many different desires and individual personalities, desire natures. Moreover, in their previous lives, each sentient being created various kinds of virtuous and unwholesome karma, and so on. All the discriminating thoughts of sentient beings, their actions, desires, and mental states, as well as the virtuous and unwholesome karma they created in past lives, all of these things, are things that ordinary Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas cannot know, but the Buddha knows all of them, one by one. Precisely because of this, when he teaches the Dharma to sentient beings, he uses all kinds of causes and conditions, analogies, words, and skillful means, so that sentient beings can temporarily and ultimately attain satisfaction and joy and experience happiness. This is indeed the Buddha's profound and truly inconceivable power of boundless wisdom. Perhaps those individuals who do not fully understand the qualities of the Buddha may not necessarily believe these things. Sometimes when we observe certain comments online, we might notice that because on the internet anyone can post anything and there are no restrictions. So the mindsets and afflictions of sentient beings are all kinds of different and varied. In this case, perhaps a lot of positive information from many people, especially practitioners. Many practitioners may not spend all day on there. So there is a lot of negative content, some even saying that the Buddha's skillful means are insufficient or his wisdom is lacking. And some people even claim, I am exactly the same as the Buddha, and so on. Now, in this age of the Dharma's decline, all kinds of language and expressions exist. But the most important thing is, first, we ourselves must truly gain a deep and broad understanding of the Buddha's teachings. We need to attain firm conviction in our hearts. If we have gained this conviction, even if there are thousands upon thousands of people, whether they speak against the Buddha or the Dharma or against the lineage masters or the tradition, no matter what they say, we will not be shaken. If we ourselves have not developed a truly firm faith, we could indeed waver at any given time. This is a law of nature and also a fact. Therefore, at that time, the Buddha was able to understand the capacities of all sentient beings and used various skillful means and analogies and methods, as well as a variety of methods of teaching, to help all sentient beings attain temporary and ultimate liberation and freedom. What are the skillful means the Buddha compassionately taught for all sentient beings exactly here? We often speak clearly of the complete Tripitaka and the 12 divisions of the sacred scriptures properly. Among the 12 divisions, it seems that here only a few are specifically mentioned today. The following mentions 9 divisions. As for the other divisions among the Tripitaka and the 12 divisions were also introduced to everyone in the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. So I won't introduce them here. Here, a few divisions are mentioned. What are the skillful Dharma methods of the Buddha? One is Sutra, which is a Sanskrit term. It primarily refers to prose texts, what we often commonly call the Sutras. The Buddha frequently taught scriptures about various causes and conditions. This is precisely called sutra. For example, the Four Agamas Sutra also belongs to the category of sutras. The second is called gatha. The gatha is entirely expressed in poetic verse, taking the form of distinct and structured stanzas, just like the Dhammapada. Some sacred scriptures are entirely and comprehensively expounded in the form of poetic verses. Then there is Jataka. Regarding Jataka, the Buddha spoke of many. For example, stories about the Śrāvakas, Arhats, and Bodhisattvas. Among his disciples, the various causes and conditions from their past lives, and how they later attained fruition and benefited sentient beings. These kinds of accounts are called Jataka Sutras. There are also scriptures in the Buddhist canon called Jataka Sutras. Then there are the birth stories sutras. As described in the Sutra of the Garland of Birth Stories, for example, the Buddha himself, throughout countless past lives, how he practiced generosity, upheld precepts, and so on. There are many accounts of his own virtues and biographies accumulated over countless lifetimes. In the Buddhist scriptures, these are also called the Jataka tales. There are also the unprecedented sutras, which are particularly rare in the Buddhist canon. These reveal various miraculous manifestations and supernatural powers for the benefit of sentient beings. Some of these are truly unprecedented, very rare Mahayana Buddhist sutras, and so on, among other things. Then there are the Karma Sutras, such as the Sutra of 100 Karmas. They clearly explain various complex causes and conditions in detail, such as the Sutra of 100 Karmas and similar texts. There are also parables where the Buddha used very simple and easy to understand analogies to explain profound principles such as cause and effect, just like in the Parable Sutra. Then there are the Gaya, mixed prose and verse texts. Gaya contains both prose passages and verses together perfectly, just like our current sacred Lotus Sutra teaches us today, combining both prose and verse forms beautifully. There is also the Upadesha, which refers to treatises or discussions that delve into spiritual and philosophical concepts. These are explained by Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, or disciples, using a detailed question and answer format to effectively clarify profound and complex content. This specific approach is precisely what is known as the Upadesha Sutra, a significant and insightful text. As the Buddha just mentioned, he understands the various capacities and dispositions of sentient beings. Every sentient being is different. Therefore, for some sentient beings, the Parable Sutra may be very meaningful when explained to them. For some, the Sutra of 100 Karmas is appropriate to teach. For others, it's the Lotus Sutra that should be taught. So not every sentient being is necessarily able to accept it. Some of us, when a certain teaching or a certain disciple doesn't accept it, feel especially saddened. When the master transmits a teaching, some people develop wrong views and even cry. It's nothing unusual. Every sentient being has a different capacity. Not every sentient being can resonate with everything, not even with the Buddha. If all sentient beings could be fulfilled with just one scripture, then teaching just the Infinite Life Sutra or just the Diamond Sutra would be enough. But that's not the case. In fact, for example, if you consider a truly skilled doctor, when treating illnesses, he prescribes many different medicines. He gives different prescriptions to different patients carefully. They're not the same at all. So in the future, especially when we practice, we must remember this important principle clearly. Whether it's Chinese Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism, it's the same with other traditions as well. If we want to promote a lineage or a school or a teacher, it's generally best not to be attached to our own side. My teacher, my school, my whatever, any mindset that is entirely selfish or solely self-serving will not yield good results. We need to seek the truth. This is extremely important.
So when the Buddha was expounding the profound Lotus Sutra, he also specifically mentioned the 9 distinct categories of scriptures. In fact, each and every scripture inherently brings different and significant benefits to all sentient beings. You see, when many of us recite scriptures, some people prefer to recite this sutra, and some like to recite the Heart Sutra, some prefer the Diamond Sutra, and some people like to recite other sutras. This is because each and every sentient being truly has different karmic conditions. Next, it talks about how the Buddha indeed skillfully used skillful means, how he expounded the teachings to these sentient beings. For example, some sentient beings have dull faculties, and they especially prefer the Hinayana teachings that are somewhat self-centered and self-serving. They are deeply attached to the cycle of birth and death and are unwilling to renounce it, or in other words, they are not willing to attain ultimate liberation. Moreover, these sentient beings have not, in front of countless Buddhas, diligently practiced profound and subtle dharma in the past, and therefore they remain bound by their attachments and karmic conditions. Now, at times their wisdom is shallow and their faith is lacking. Their arrogance is especially strong. These kinds of things actually arise from many different causes and conditions. You can't just say, I have so many afflictions right now. Other people are doing well. Others can recite so well. Well, I can't even memorize it, but my mood. Some of us now have very truly unstable moods indeed. Today, even when nothing is wrong, we feel especially unhappy with a worried look on our faces. Tomorrow, in a moment, we might be happy again, and then suddenly, like the sun between the clouds, it disappears in an instant. What is this really? Actually, it really has a lot to do with causes and conditions from our past lives. Otherwise, even when we're in the exact same environment, eating the same food, wearing the same clothes, sometimes you see people who wear the same clothes and eat the same food. Like in some group settings or in some organizations, including some companies, on the surface it looks as though everyone is wearing exactly the same uniform, appearing almost identical in their outward appearance. And each person seems just fine, but in reality everyone's afflictions are different. Sometimes when I see those especially orderly groups, on the surface these people look very neat and uniform, and they all appear to be energetic and spirited. But in fact, each of them is hiding different troubles inside. At different times exactly, these spiritual phenomena will naturally erupt in various and distinct ways clearly. Some sentient beings are deeply attached to minor teachings, and as a direct result, they have not accumulated sufficient merit or diligently practiced the 10 virtuous deeds before countless Buddhas throughout history completely, and are tormented and disturbed by all kinds of suffering. In the face of these situations, the Buddha would first teach them some methods of temporary nirvana, methods for temporary cessation. If he were to teach them the ultimate dharma or the Mahayana teachings, it might not work for them. So, for the time being, he would teach them something simpler, such as the Four Noble Truths or other basic teachings. This allows them to rest here for a short period of time. It's just like how in Buddhism we talk about the 5 vehicles: the human vehicle, the celestial vehicle, the Śrāvaka vehicle, the Pratyekabuddha vehicle, and the Bodhisattva vehicle. Nowadays, many of us, including the living Buddhism that I advocate, and the humanistic Buddhism that people used to talk about, we don't dare to mention nirvana, nor do we dare to talk about higher teachings like emptiness or the profound dharma. We only talk to people about comprehensive health and overall wellness, discussing effective strategies for how to consistently stay healthy, how to meticulously maintain one's personal beauty, how to properly take care of the skin, and how to expertly dye one's hair. When we talk like this, many people are especially delighted, thinking, this is the teaching that resonates with me. In fact, Buddhism also contains teachings on how to find happiness in this world, but unfortunately, he cannot attain liberation. It only allows sentient beings to experience temporary happiness. There is also another kind of teaching. In this present life, we diligently practice meditation, primarily meditation, in order to attain the full fruition of the form realm, the formless realm, or the heavenly realms of the desire realm. This is also possible. We usually encourage people to meditate diligently, but without the foundation of renunciation or bodhicitta, without such prerequisites, we let them settle their minds. In this case, it can also be considered the celestial vehicle. Perhaps in your next life, you may not be reborn as a human, because in this life, you enter meditation every day, and in the next life, you end up in the formless realm for 80,000 kalpas, or in the first or second dhyana heavens of the form realm, or just in a more general ethereal heavenly realm, a celestial abode. Actually, there are countless different states in the heavenly realms. It is very likely to be reborn among these realms. So what exactly did the Buddha temporarily teach everyone? He spoke of nirvana, explaining this profound kind of nirvana to them. Thus, the Buddha skillfully set up such skillful means to let all sentient beings truly enter into the profound wisdom of the Buddha. He had not yet temporarily told them, you will certainly attain Buddhahood, because in some Śrāvakayana sutras and treatises, it is clearly stated, it basically does not mention attaining the unsurpassed fruit of Buddhahood, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, and then liberate countless sentient beings. None of these are mentioned. Why aren't they mentioned? This is indeed one of the Buddha's very skillful and compassionate methods. If he were told directly, he wouldn't be able to accept it. When we talk about emptiness, for example, when we discuss the 60 stanzas of reasoning, someone said he really couldn't take it. I said, the 60 stanzas of reasoning has 60 verses. I hope you can listen to the whole thing. No, I can't. If you talk about cause and effect, I can still listen. At that time, our institute's conditions were very poor, and there were very few people. Maybe there were only a few dozen Han Chinese among us, and then there was one person. The teaching of the 60 stanzas of reasoning wasn't extensive, but the 60 stanzas of reasoning is difficult. I taught both the 70 stanzas on emptiness and the 60 stanzas of reasoning. I said, it's fine if you don't want to listen. The 60 stanzas of reasoning is very short, just 60 verses. He said, no, I can't take it, I can't handle it. And later, he really did leave. So sometimes if you explain things directly without skillful means, it's too much. It's normal that some people can't even finish listening to a single teaching. That's why sometimes we need to have a more tolerant attitude. Nowadays in the world, there are all kinds of sentient beings. They can exist and we can be accommodating. Don't think that just because someone's mindset is different from yours, or because their views, traditions, or habits are a bit different from yours. You should question, why are you like this? You should follow my way. You can't do things your way. If you do it your way, then we have no common language, and we can't really reach a full consensus, This particular kind of approach still has its inherent limitations. Not everything can necessarily reach a consensus. Every sentient being has different habits and tendencies, so it's quite difficult to reach a consensus on everything. So the Buddha said that with wisdom and skillful means, he did not immediately tell them that they must attain the profound state of Buddhahood. Why was that the case? If he had revealed the path to Buddhahood right away at that particular time, the prevailing conditions and the readiness of the individuals were simply not yet sufficiently ripe for such a transformative and ultimate teaching. But today, when the causes and conditions have matured and it is time to teach the Mahayana Dharma, he will definitely teach the Mahayana teachings, because for the time being, for the Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas, or when the Buddha firstly turned the wheel of Dharma, he did not teach in this particular way. The reason for not teaching it then is also a kind of skillful means. Many of us, when we first hear the Buddha's words, some so-called skillful means are actually just understood based on our own ideas, but this is actually mistaken. If you listen, contemplate, and practice over a long period of time, you will only understand at a certain point that a truly skillful means is indeed necessary. Let alone attaining perfect Buddhahood or teaching the sacred Dharma properly here today, even when we do ordinary things daily, we also truly need skillful means always clearly indeed. If we lack skillful means and are too direct in our approach completely now, unfortunately, many things simply cannot be truly accomplished. So in some of our daily life experiences, we find that indeed, no matter who you are dealing with, including your family members and your colleagues, your friends, your students, you also need methods when communicating with them. When communicating with your guru, your leaders, your teachers, or those who are your superiors, you also need skillful means. Some people only look up and not down, while others only look down and not up. As I have mentioned before, at any given time, we are always standing in a particular position where there are sentient beings all around us, both above and below. We are in such a group. If you have skillful means, you can see everything clearly, sometimes even among those of us who have made aspirations. Some people are very devoted, but their methods are not entirely correct. Now, among the esteemed Dharma teachers here, we are training the younger Dharma teachers and letting them manage things. But some of them are very direct, just charging straight ahead. Then, when two people have different opinions, they insist on bringing a piece of paper for me to sign, and then use that signature as a starting point. They say, look, this signature, do you agree or not? Now you disagree, so you've lost, right? However, this particular kind of outcome isn't very good at all. Actually, in this specific kind of situation, everyone involved should first and foremost communicate well and effectively. This is indeed very important. There are some truly skillful and nuanced means and methods that can be employed. Even in the secular world, we also need to communicate. Some people, although they have wisdom, they think of themselves as remarkable because of this wisdom. But in the end, they also have many serious faults, you could certainly say clearly today. So in the actual process of doing things properly, both wisdom and skillful means are truly needed always. That's why the more I read the sacred Buddhist scriptures carefully and the truly profound and vast teachings of the venerable predecessors, the more confidence I have. To encounter such truly precious teachings in this very life is indeed an immense honor. So here it is said that earlier it wasn't stated directly that you would attain complete Buddhahood. And then the Buddha said, the 9 categories of teachings I mentioned above, including the esteemed Master Jihuan, they also consider the 9 distinct categories of teachings to be precisely the 9 types of scriptures mentioned above, which are fundamental to their understanding, which are the 9 categories among the 12 divisions of the sutras. The 9 categories of sutras are also adapted to suit sentient beings, and after these sentient beings truly follow them, what exactly is the ultimate purpose? The purpose is ultimately to lead them to the Mahayana. That is indeed why these sacred scriptures were carefully and fully expounded, whether it's the 84,000 Dharma gates or the 3 turnings of the Dharma wheel. Actually, in fact, as we previously mentioned the other day recently, we discussed this. For example, if a father himself has attended university, he might try every possible way to ensure his child also completes university. He might temporarily let the child attend elementary school, middle school, or vocational school in between. But the real purpose of all these is ultimately for the child to complete the undergraduate degree that he himself completed. It's the same principle here. So many of the methods the Buddha temporarily established are ultimately aimed at the most profound and truly wondrous Mahayana Buddhist teachings. Next, it says that some Buddhist disciples are suitable vessels for the Dharma. So what are precious sentient beings who are truly suitable vessels with excellent good roots actually like today exactly? In fact, among many dedicated Buddhist disciples worldwide currently practicing diligently together, some have very pure minds, strong faith, and deep wisdom always present clearly. Their hearts are very gentle and they possess great compassion for all sentient beings. And whether it's worldly or transcendental teachings, they can directly analyze and understand them thoroughly. These are individuals with exceptionally sharp faculties. Moreover, in front of countless Buddhas, they have also practiced the profound and wondrous path. Such Buddhist disciples can be said to be suited for the Mahayana teachings. The Buddha also gave predictions to them, saying that such people will certainly attain Buddhahood in the distant future. When we listen to the sacred Dharma, we shouldn't be developing wrong views one moment, doubts the next moment, and then discriminating thoughts the very moment after that. For some individuals, no matter how many years you diligently teach them, they still cannot develop genuine faith. But if someone points out a single fault, even a minor one, they immediately believe it. Sometimes people with little merit may have very unstable and impure faith. However, those individuals with sharp spiritual faculties and profound compassion for all sentient beings, we can effectively teach them the profound Mahayana Dharma, such as the revered Lotus Sutra. Moreover, the Buddha also clearly prophesied that such people will undoubtedly attain complete Buddhahood in the future. So, what kind of people are these? It is explained below. For example, these individuals, with a profound and insightful mind, constantly and diligently keep the Buddha in their thoughts, and, for a very long period of time, have consistently upheld pure and unblemished precepts. When they hear such profound Mahayana teachings that lead directly to perfect Buddhahood clearly, they naturally give rise to great joy immediately, which fills their entire body and mind completely with pure bliss today. The compassionate Buddha clearly knows that such pure thoughts and virtuous actions, or such deep, sincere faith today, make them truly suitable vessels for the profound Mahayana Dharma, always indeed. Some dedicated practitioners from the ancient Chan school, including some great masters of the Tiantai school, when explaining this, say that keeping the Buddha in mind means contemplating the Buddha of one's own nature. They say that truly upholding pure precepts in essence means upholding the formless precepts which are fundamental and profound. This is indeed a rather lofty interpretation. Such an explanation is also very good, because deep in their pure hearts today they truly understand the profound spiritual meaning clearly, always, completely, and they have this kind of deep and abiding faith in the Buddha and uphold such formless ethical precepts. When such people hear the Mahayana Dharma or the Lotus Sutra, or when they receive such wonderful news, their entire body and mind are filled with profound joy. Just as it is profoundly stated in the revered Entering the Middle Way treatise, when one hears the significant name of emptiness, that fundamental concept which is central to understanding reality, one gives rise to a truly joyful mind in precisely the same way indeed. Here it clearly states, if there are indeed some Śrāvakas or some Bodhisattvas, if they attentively hear the profound Dharma, such as the Lotus Sutra, which is spoken by the Buddha himself, even if it is just a single verse, they will certainly attain complete Buddhahood without any doubt whatsoever. Because regardless of what it is, all the previous obstacles of being a non-receptive vessel have already been eliminated. If one is truly a suitable vessel for the Dharma, then upon hearing even a single verse of the Buddha's Lotus Sutra, upon hearing just one verse, temporarily throughout countless lifetimes, favorable conditions will directly increase. And there is no doubt that one will quickly attain Buddhahood. This merit is entirely without any deception whatsoever, truly pure and unblemished. I have personally read a remarkable and insightful book specifically titled The Lotus Sutra Biographies, which was meticulously written by the esteemed Seng Xiang. You should take a look at it when you have time. There are many well-documented records of miraculous and profound responses contained within it. In the Lotus Sutra Biographies, it is specifically said that there was a particular person, apparently an elderly woman, who dedicated her entire life to living by the vast and expansive sea, spending her whole existence there. She was selling fresh fish and fishing all day long tirelessly, exactly like a dedicated fisherwoman always working. Later, after she eventually died peacefully, she went directly before King Yama. Then King Yama asked her, saying, "What exactly did you do in the human world?" She didn't say anything. He asked her again, "Did you ever do a single truly good deed in the human world during your time there?" She thought and pondered deeply, and then finally remembered. She had once attended a profound and insightful lecture on the Lotus Sutra. She had only done this one single time in her entire life. Just like some of us who embark on journeys and travel today, it might very well be the same profound experience for you. Perhaps your very first truly good and selfless deed performed in this life, a moment of pure altruism, could also turn out to be your very last good deed. At that pivotal and solemn moment, King Yama then spoke, saying, "Since you once attended a lecture on the profound Lotus Sutra, you may now return to the human world. It turns out that when you were living in the human world, you often sold fish and went fishing for a living. Because of this karma, you could fall into hell. Later, this woman personally witnessed a particularly cruel hell. Many fishermen were suffering there in an extremely, extremely painful hell like that. Originally, you were supposed to fall into such a terrible hell, but because you attentively listened to the profound Lotus Sutra just once, you were spared. You were allowed to return to the human world. After this particular person came back home and settled in, from that moment on, she completely abstained from killing. How exactly did she come to hear this? On that particular day, she had already successfully sold all of her fish. Usually, she would take a small boat home every single day, but on that particular day, there was a very heavy downpour. So, in order to avoid the rain, she simply sat by the seaside. It seemed there was an ancient temple or some similar structure by the sea, standing majestically. Inside, there was someone giving a lecture on the Lotus Sutra. Out of curiosity, while sheltering from the rain, she went over to listen to the lecture. After the rain stopped and the lecture ended, she left. Because she did this good deed in her lifetime, she was later spared from falling into hell. Maybe some people in academia today genuinely think this is just a captivating story, a mere legend. That's entirely possible. But personally, I truly and deeply believe in its profound truth and significance. The law of cause and effect is truly inconceivable. So I also sincerely hope that even if it's just one single class that you happen to attend, for example, whether you come with a skeptical mind, a jealous mind, a truly joyful mind, or indeed any kind of positive mindset, as long as your ears hear the profound Lotus Sutra, This immense merit will never be exhausted throughout your entire life. Such virtuous deeds will never be depleted. So that's also what is mentioned here. Even if it's just a single verse, all will become Buddhas without doubt. This is an extremely meritorious and truly commendable act. So later, after this remarkable woman came into the world and began her journey, she mainly devoted herself to spreading the Lotus Sutra to others. Because she didn't die, she died in the middle, and then some of us have also fainted in the middle like that, feeling as though we've gone to King Yama and then miraculously come back. This is especially true for some individuals who undergo major surgical procedures, as they often experience this kind of profound and disorienting situation as well.
Next, it is indeed said that among all the Buddha lands in the 10 directions, there is truly only the one vehicle Dharma. So here, speaking from the ultimate perspective, among all the Buddha lands in the 10 directions, if we sum up all the wondrous teachings, there is only the one vehicle, the Dharma of the Buddha vehicle. There is no second vehicle, such as the Mahayana or Hinayana. There are not 3 vehicles, Śrāvaka, Pratyekabuddha, or Bodhisattva vehicles. Ultimately, these do not exist, temporarily through the Buddha's skillful means, and using only provisional names in this particular way, and employing some conventionally established terms to guide countless sentient beings. So when we temporarily speak of the 3 vehicles, it is also a profound and significant expression of the Buddha's boundless wisdom. It is reasonable to speak this way temporarily as well. Therefore, sometimes we may use skillful means. And when we have skillful means, when we teach the Dharma to others, it is not always necessary to mention the names of certain sutras, nor is it always necessary to mention the names of certain teachers. If there are teachers they don't like to hear about, it's best not to mention them. If you do mention them, they might turn away, so don't mention anything. If you just present the teachings given by the teacher, they might be able to accept them. There are also some Buddha's names that shouldn't be mentioned. If you mention the Buddha, those who don't like the Buddha, especially considering many of the current ideologies in the world, I used to live in a mountain valley, and everyone around me was a Buddhist, and they all had especially strong and unwavering faith in their beliefs. For nearly 20 years, I basically didn't have much contact with others. Although when His Holiness went out at that time, I also followed him. But when I was following His Holiness, it seemed I didn't interact with people below. Every day I watched what the teacher did, wondering if the teacher would criticize me. I was always following, feeling nervous. So I couldn't really understand many of the people below. Then in recent years, I've traveled to various places around the world. Perhaps I've encountered sentient beings from the 5 continents. Then, when I think about it, it turns out that we shouldn't just teach the Dharma in a purely Buddhist way. Otherwise, many sentient beings simply can't accept it. No matter what you do in this life, even if you kill them, they still won't be able to accept it. So as long as it helps them to accept it, any method is fine. That's why Manjushri Bodhisattva is truly remarkable. He displayed many different behaviors, even among non-Buddhists. In the future, many of you will be the same, and only when you encounter different sentient beings in various places will you truly understand. So in this world, we talk daily about ultimate truth and conventional truth, about the profound dharma of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, about generating unsurpassed bodhicitta and renunciation. But this may not necessarily benefit others. So sometimes you see even the Buddha himself, unless he used skillful and appropriate means, would guide sentient beings through provisional teachings because of the Buddha's profound wisdom and understanding. So, the only truly great event for which all Buddhas appear in this world, as we discussed yesterday, is the Buddha's appearance in the world, which is due to a great cause and condition. As for this particular appearance, in actual fact, it is solely and exclusively for the profound teaching of Mahayana Buddhism. This is the reason for his coming. In other words, it is to benefit countless sentient beings. Apart from this, there is no other true purpose. Ultimately, it is not to liberate beings through Hinayana. Temporarily, it may be acceptable. For now, whether it is the Śrāvakayana, the human vehicle, or the heavenly vehicle, or even humanistic Buddhism, and many others, we should not slander them. We truly must not slander them, if your own faculties are not suited to them. Nowadays, some people speak carelessly and irresponsibly, saying this is wrong, that is wrong. Of course, on one hand, people are free to speak, and sometimes, with this freedom, they say a bit too much. If you say too many things, perhaps you yourself will feel a little bit better. But some people, because of very strong habitual tendencies from their past lives in this particular area, might say a lot unnecessarily. So what we are discussing here is not about liberating sentient beings through the methods of the Hinayana, The Buddha himself abided in the state of Mahayana, and all the Dharma he attained, and all the profound teachings he truly realized, and all the wisdom can all truly be said to be adorned and empowered by meditative concentration, profound meditation, sublime wisdom, and the ability to benefit sentient beings. They are equipped with these qualities. This method liberates sentient beings. The Buddha's method for liberating sentient beings is wisdom, meditative concentration, power, and ability, the power of wisdom, compassion, and strength. We can call it wisdom. It's called the power of wisdom and compassion, or concentration, wisdom, and ability. This ability is still necessary. If you only have wisdom but lack ability, nowadays some people are very wise, but they don't have any ability at all. There is a famous professor whom I saw the other day. He is wise. When I was abroad, I met this especially renowned professor. He had completed postdoctoral studies, one after another, and had successfully attended some of the world's most prestigious top academic institutions diligently. But now, unfortunately, even his own daily life is really quite difficult. I said, I read your profile, and you are so accomplished, so why is your life so difficult? He said, I don't know, maybe it's karma manifesting. Although my academic background is impressive, and I think my intelligence is good, look, in all these countries, Britain, the US, and Japan, I have successfully completed my highest academic degrees at the top prestigious schools in each of them carefully. But now, in my daily life, I can't even afford the rent for my apartment. I am teaching at a university diligently, but there are many serious difficulties. Sometimes people still need to have this kind of ability, even if you have wisdom and other qualities, if you lack capability and merit. Even with dedicated effort, there will still be certain inherent difficulties and challenges. Here, he is profoundly saying that the Buddha himself, through his profound wisdom and dedicated practice, attained unsurpassed and complete enlightenment. And what he realized was also the non-duality of appearance and emptiness, the equality of the Mahayana Dharma, if he were to use the methods of the Hinayana to benefit sentient beings. Even if it were just to benefit a single individual in that particular way, one could certainly say that the Buddha would be falling into a state of stinginess and attachment. This is absolutely impossible. In other words, what the Buddha realized is actually the highest state of Mahayana Buddhism. It is indeed not the Hinayana. Unless it is for the sake of temporarily benefiting sentient beings, then using Hinayana methods to help sentient beings is acceptable. But ultimately, he definitely does not take the Hinayana as the main approach. If that were the case, since he realized the highest state of non-duality of appearance and emptiness, what he gives to sentient beings is not ultimate teaching, then that would be very stingy, wouldn't it indeed? Look, you yourself have already attained the highest state, but when it comes to truly benefiting sentient beings, if you only give them a little bit, then that is certainly not the true compassionate intention of the deeply enlightened Buddha today, honestly, always, clearly. Wow, this young child sings very well indeed, naturally. It's perfectly fine. Crying is also a very natural and healthy emotional release. Next, it clearly states that if someone truly has deep faith in and sincerely takes refuge in the Buddha, the enlightened one, the Tathagata who has come and gone, regardless of whether it is for temporary or ultimate benefit, he will not deceive or mislead them. What is the reason for this? Because the Buddha has always, even while still on the causal ground, already eliminated greed, anger, jealousy, and so on, and has completely and utterly eradicated all evil dharmas among all phenomena. In this profound way, the Buddha is truly unique and absolutely fearless throughout the 10 directions, indeed one of a kind, without any fear whatsoever. You could certainly say that he is carefree and completely at ease. Indeed, he is the happiest of all. Just now, the phrase, eliminated all evil among dharmas, was mentioned. It should be a phrase from the profound commentary on the Lotus Sutra. The so-called evil refers to afflictions, karma, and suffering. That is to say, when the Buddha was still on the causal ground, he had already eliminated all afflictions, all karma, and all suffering. In this sacred way, throughout all the countless infinite worlds in the 10 directions, he is completely and utterly fearless forever. It seems that in Tibetan, this profound fearless is described as also meaning to enable all sentient beings to awaken and enter the Buddha's path. If you take refuge in the Buddha, there will be no deception. Why is that the case? Because he truly has no legitimate cause for any deception. As for us ordinary people, we might deceive others and may not be reliable. Why is that?
because we have greed, selfishness, habits, and afflictions. If these are absent from one's mind stream, then like the Buddha, there would be no deception. So what is the only thing the Buddha does? He enables all sentient beings to become Buddhas. This is precisely what he does. Or you could also say that the Buddha, in the 10 directions, as explicitly stated in the profound commentary on the Lotus Sutra, uses the powerful and resonant lion's roar as a profound metaphor for being completely and utterly fearless. This is because the undeniable truth he speaks forth cannot be surpassed or overcome by anything in this entire world. Nowadays, some people may also comment on the Buddha's words, saying that it's possible to speak about them, but can they really be refuted? We can also use valid reasoning to examine this point. Then the Buddha said, "With my extremely dignified and beautiful body, as well as the light that illuminates this world, I let countless sentient beings, because when the Buddha was in the world, his appearance was extremely dignified and his body radiated light. Many Śrāvakas and Arhats were also very envious of this. He made countless sentient beings hold him in great respect. In this way, he expounded the Dharma seal of ultimate reality to sentient beings. That is to say, the most ultimate, the emptiness among the 4 Dharma seals. This is also the most ultimate, the Dharma of ultimate reality. We may, for the time being, teach sentient beings some of the Dharma that is not of ultimate reality. But what did the Buddha ultimately teach us? It was the Dharma seal of ultimate reality. So, Sariputra, you should clearly know and understand that the Buddha, in the very beginning of his spiritual journey, made a profound and significant vow. What kind of vow did he make? It was to let all sentient beings become like him, to attain unsurpassed, complete and perfect enlightenment exactly as he did, or the fruit of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. In the Sutra of Compassionate Flower, we also see that the Buddha once, especially Shakyamuni Buddha once, in the era of the Brahmin Haichan, generated the aspiration and made 500 great vows. In our previous treatise on the White Lotus, there are also these 500 great vows. So here, in order to truly liberate all sentient beings, he made 500 truly great and profound vows. The Buddha said, just as I made many significant vows in the past, today all of them have been completely fulfilled. All 500 great vows have been accomplished. Precisely because of this, he is able to transform all sentient beings and lead them onto the Buddha path. Because the Buddha, having fully attained Buddhahood, he consequently left us such profound and invaluable teachings. Moreover, he enabled many of us, through practice, to attain both temporary and ultimate results. That is to say, many of us practitioners, through the Dharma, let's not talk about attaining Buddhahood for now, but just in this world, the benefits to our minds should be absolutely clear to everyone deeply and completely. As the ancient wise saying always goes, only the one who drinks the water knows if it's hot or cold. As long as you practice diligently, truly, in the sacred process of practice, if you don't practice sincerely, many people have told me this, if you don't practice, if you don't study Buddhism well, they don't know what their lives would have become by now. Because the world is becoming increasingly more and more complicated and intricate, it is essential to adapt. Here in our mountain valley, it seems like we never watch the news all day. Maybe things are still relatively calm, still pretty okay. However, once you watch the daily news, you will inevitably see numerous terrorist attacks occurring all over the world, including the pervasive current global economic downturn, as well as critical water issues, significant air issues, and a multitude of so many other pressing problems. It seems that this 21st century, which people used to think would be the most wonderful era, but if you compare people of the current 21st century with those of the 20th or even the 19th centuries, it's truly hard to say who is actually happier. Now, no matter where we are, the roads are getting narrower, the cars are increasing, people's minds are becoming more and more restless, yet everyone is getting busier and busier. Even for us practitioners, sometimes it's the same. Some people say to me, why don't you answer the phone? Khenpo, why don't you answer the phone? Why don't you reply to my urgent messages quickly and regularly? I say desperately. Sometimes I don't even have time to eat or sleep properly nowadays, so how could I possibly have time for that? Eating and sleeping should be absolutely very important, essential things for a person, but sometimes, maybe if you compare how busy we are to others, perhaps we are in a slightly better position. To be completely honest, a significant portion of my current busyness and the demands on my time, including translation and many things every day, like giving lectures and handling some affairs of the Institute. As for my own personal matters, there actually aren't that many significant things to discuss. So in that sense, maybe it's a bit better. But still, there are always a lot of things to do, so many things. There was a Dharma teacher from Taiwan who once said, I think I heard this about 10 years ago. He said in a video that he always felt there simply wasn't enough time.
At that particular moment, I wasn't quite that busy yet, and I thought to myself, how could there possibly not be enough time? There really should be ample time, right? Back then, I had this kind of discriminating thought. But looking at it now, it really does seem like there's not enough time. At times like this, if it weren't for the Dharma, I might often feel extremely very tired and quite miserable physically. But because of the sacred Dharma, even though I'm constantly busy, I'm very happy deeply. No matter what happens, it all seems to be easily resolved. That's how it is for me truly. I'm definitely not pretending, sincerely. And honestly, I'm not just saying this casually and thoughtlessly to everyone today. No matter what difficult situation it is, it all seems very simple indeed. There's really nothing in the human world that's such a big deal that could happen. So whatever happens, it seems like, in my own mindset, I truly feel that I should be very happy. I genuinely have this profound feeling. Where exactly does this feeling truly come from? I think it absolutely and unequivocally comes from the profound Dharma. If it weren't for the Dharma, I often deeply ponder thoughtfully and sincerely, if I hadn't fortunately met my precious wise teacher back then carefully, if I hadn't diligently pursued all these meaningful years of study and reflection, now, when I encounter some complicated matters, even though I wear the robes of a monastic, my heart might still be in a terrible state, and I could very well be suffering a lot. So I am especially grateful to my greatly kind root guru, the wish-fulfilling jewel, and to all the other teachers who have given me the gift of the Dharma. The immense strength and profound guidance these dedicated teachers have generously given to me truly is something I can never adequately repay, not even in an entire lifetime. This strength is not just temporary, but it is deeply rooted in my alaya consciousness, lasting through lifetime after lifetime. Sometimes when I think of the kindness of so many teachers, because now it's almost 30 years since I started teaching the Dharma to the Han Chinese community. Originally, I made a vow for 30 years, starting from 1987. During this entire and extensive process, I have also profoundly received the immense Dharma kindness and benevolent guidance of many esteemed and revered teachers. Especially 20 years ago when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok was still alive. At that time, our institute also had many senior Khenpos. Now, most of them have already passed away. The other day, I used my fingers to count them. Which Khenpo, basically many of them, indeed, a significant number. I think there simply isn't enough time right now. I originally wanted to meticulously count them all. What was I saying just now? I was talking about this. Today seems to be a day when I feel like talking. Sometimes there are days when I don't feel like talking. There's a bit of a difference. Sentient beings have different karmic forces. Where exactly did I happen to leave off just now at this very moment? If I encounter sentient beings, I teach the profound path to Buddhahood in various and diverse ways. At such crucial times, those without true wisdom, the truly unwise, become utterly confused. Those who are deeply deluded remain stubbornly lost and steadfastly refuse to be taught. When the Buddha encountered sentient beings and expounded the wondrous Dharma, in fact, some people without wisdom, those with strong discriminating thoughts, were simply unable to accept it. Those burdened by heavy afflictions also could not accept it. It was the same even when the Buddha was in the world. Later, if you look at the biographies of many eminent monks and great masters, it was the same. I once read the biography of Khenpo Genko, the principal disciple of Mipham Rinpoche. Khenpo Genko said, "Nowadays, among the many disciples of our era, there are indeed those who are stubborn and quite difficult to transform. At such times, I often think back then, there must have been truly remarkable great accomplished masters in those days. But even in their era, there were many disciples who were stubborn and difficult to transform. So every era has them. Next, we should talk about the 5 degenerate ages. In some Chinese commentaries, this is referred to as what we call the 5 defilements. The defilement of sentient beings, the defilement of lifespan, the defilement of afflictions, the defilement of views, and the defilement of the era. There are 5 defilements to discuss, and the first is the defilement of sentient beings. He said, "I know that these sentient beings, many of them are ordinary beings, who have never practiced virtue before, have no foundation in virtuous deeds, and are firmly attached to the 5 desires. As for the 5 desires, they are wealth, sensual pleasure, fame, food, and sleep." This is also how it is explained in Chinese commentaries. There is the explanation that the 5 desires mean the 5 sensory: form, sound, smell, taste, touch. These are the 5 kinds of sensual pleasures that we talk about. They are deeply attached to these sensual pleasures. Due to their ignorance, afflictions arise continuously. driven by desire and conditions, they continuously fall into the 3 lower realms of hell, hungry ghosts and animals, or within the 6 realms of samsara, constantly experience suffering and torment, and are never able to attain liberation. The vast and majestic sutra profoundly says, those who are deeply attached to the 5 desires will inevitably lose the profound joy of true liberation. Those who are attached to the 5 desires, if people are truly and completely obsessed with the 5 desires, they will certainly lose the pure joy of liberation. They will, without a doubt, forfeit the immense happiness that genuinely comes from achieving liberation. This is precisely what is called the turbidities of sentient beings. Some say these ordinary sentient beings have never cultivated the root of virtue. Here, root of virtue is explained in the writings on the Lotus Sutra as the virtue of realizing the true nature, referring to the virtue of realizing emptiness. Although many sentient beings have performed some good deeds, they have never done good deeds related to emptiness or the true nature. Because of this, they continue to endlessly cycle in samsara. So, it means sentient beings are truly pitiable. This is the turbidity of sentient beings. Next, the second is the turbidity of lifespan, also called lifespan turbidity. After sentient beings are conceived and enter the womb, they go through various developmental stages such as coagulation, much like cheese, like fish, and like a turtle, experiencing the 7 distinct stages of fetal development within the womb. If this process constantly increases life after life, then sentient beings will continue to cycle endlessly in samsara, revolving endlessly through the continuous cycles of birth and death, life after life, in a perpetual transmigration. People who possess such incredibly scant blessings are consequently tormented by all kinds of profound and pervasive suffering, including physical pain, emotional distress, and mental anguish. Sentient beings residing in this world, especially those who are born from the womb, such as humans and many animals, also endure this suffering in the world. It is truly and deeply pitiable. Next we will discuss the turbidity of views, which is the third one. They enter the dense forest, the thicket of wrong views. If one clings to the belief in existence or non-existence and so on, relying on such views, there are altogether 62 types. Previously, when we discussed the entering the middle way, this was also explained. We primarily rely on the 5 aggregates, which are fundamental components. For example, regarding the form aggregate, there are 4 distinct possibilities that exist between the form and the self. Is form truly the self, or is it not the self? Or does form depend on the self or not depend on the self, and so on, really? Of course, there are several different ways to analyze this. In this fundamental way, clearly, there are precisely 4 essential wrong views, carefully based on physical form indeed. Then, specifically, if each of the other 5 aggregates also has 4 completely, 4 times 5 is 20. There are also the profound, fundamental, philosophical views of pure eternalism and absolute nihilism, deeply indeed traditionally. How exactly were all the 5 sacred aggregates carefully calculated at that specific time? Take another look. You can check it again later. I've forgotten the details of this part. 62 kinds of wrong views. This particular point should be thoroughly explained in the detailed commentary on the significant work, Entering the Middle Way. Let me think about it. It is 4 types. How are the philosophical concepts of eternalism and nihilism counted? I honestly haven't carefully checked everything yet. I should definitely look it up thoroughly again. Let's deeply review it together carefully in the next important class, which might be in a month. Next, should I talk about this particular subject? I guess I certainly can. What exactly is it about? It's specifically about the profound defilement that arises from various afflictions. Sentient beings are deeply attached to illusory phenomena, firmly clinging and unable to let go. They possess their own arrogance, pride, and conceit, and a mind that is full of deceit and duplicity constantly and relentlessly entangles these sentient beings. This is the defilement of afflictions. We know that sentient beings have self-clinging and arrogance. They take what is originally illusory and cling to it as if it were real. As for the defilement of the kalpa, for countless infinite eons, deeply and sincerely, they do not even hear the sacred name of the precious Buddha completely. They cannot even hear the blessed word Buddha, nor can they hear the true eternal Dharma. Such people are truly truly pitiable indeed. So in this precious and unique lifetime, all of us gathered here, at the very least, have been granted the profound and invaluable opportunity to truly hear and deeply understand the sacred teachings of the Buddha Dharma. This precious and rare spiritual opportunity is deeply, profoundly, and extremely meaningful forever indeed. Originally, I sincerely wanted to say a bit more thoughtfully now, but that's fine. Let's stop here. Therefore, Shariputra, I set forth skillful means to teach the true and ultimate path to the end of suffering and reveal the profound nirvana to them. Although I speak of nirvana, it is not true extinction. All dharmas from the very beginning. I was actually supposed to talk about the next part, but that's quite fine too, also perfectly. Upon carefully observing the precise current time today specifically, it is absolutely clear that the complex data transmission process has completely and successfully reached its final conclusion indeed. All right then, let's definitely stop here now completely indeed. We've thoroughly talked about the important 5 mental defilements today, comprehensively. No, actually, I should elaborate and say a bit more on this topic. Stopping the discussion at this point doesn't feel entirely complete or quite right, as there is more to convey. Therefore, Shariputra, I employ a wide array of diverse and effective skillful means and methods to teach the path of ending suffering, the Buddha Dharma. Then I explained the concept of nirvana from the path of the lesser vehicle to the great vehicle, a significant and profound transition. The Buddha, using different methods and a gradual approach to eliminate the suffering of every sentient being to explain nirvana. Although I speak of nirvana, this is not the true and ultimate cessation. It is not the final cessation. This nirvana, all phenomena are, according to the Śrāvaka's nirvana, all phenomena have already become extinct. But in reality, it is not just mere emptiness, nor is it truly extinction. Because from the perspective of the true nature and original state of all phenomena, in fact, there is a natural kind of extinction. This extinction is free from the 4 extremes and the 8 elaborations. It is not a mere emptiness of cessation. Therefore, all bodhisattvas truly and diligently practice this profound and sacred path, and only in future lives will they attain Buddhahood. For now, we temporarily begin by introducing the teachings of the Śrāvakayana, and through this we instruct them in a form of nirvana, which, however, is not the ultimate nirvana. The ultimate nirvana is to expound the Mahayana's one vehicle. So what is the reason for teaching the one and only vehicle? It is because the fundamental nature of all phenomena is always inherently quiescent. It's not that a particular phenomenon simply becomes quiescent just because I temporarily state that it is so. The profound essence of all phenomena is completely free from any conceptual elaboration. After these bodhisattvas have practiced such a path, they will be able to attain Buddhahood in future lives. If you do not first, just as when we discuss the lamp of certainty and we first talk about mere emptiness, cutting off self-clinging and grasping at true existence, and then gradually move on to other related topics and subjects. For example, the emptiness taught in the Mahayana Yogacara and Madhyamaka schools is more suitable. Therefore, when we carefully and systematically study profound Mahayana Buddhism deeply, if we start by directly entering, like the Madhyamaka Prasangika school, directly into the view of emptiness, it is not very reasonable. We should first ascertain the emptiness as taught in the Śrāvakayana, the emptiness of self in persons. Then if we gradually proceed further, this is indeed the very best and most skillful method. With the profound power of skillful means, I reveal the teachings of the 3 vehicles. Therefore, the Buddha wisely used skillful means to teach the Dharma of the 3 vehicles. All the world-honored ones proclaim the path of the one vehicle. So, ultimately speaking, all the world-honored ones teach the ultimate path of the one vehicle. Now, all those present should dispel their doubts. Therefore, everyone present here today should completely eliminate their doubts. Indeed, doubt is a very significant obstacle in Buddhism. I also sincerely hope that everyone can develop profound wisdom, especially during the profound and intricate process of diligently studying the sacred Lotus Sutra. It is often observed that perhaps those individuals who genuinely lack sufficient wisdom or unwavering faith, many people may not be able to accept it. Because indeed this Dharma is something that ordinary people cannot easily accept. We have already discussed this earlier. Therefore, whether in our esteemed institute or our respected association, as well as in various other locations, we must also reflect on ourselves. A human life is extremely precious and hard to obtain. If we simply follow what others say, just simply following this or that, it will not cause me any harm at all, nor will it harm the Lotus Sutra in any way. but for you personally, it may cause some harm. So regarding this cause and condition today, I am also speaking here. The Buddha said, "Today among this assembly, I sincerely hope that you can truly dispel your doubts and concerns." Why is that the case? Because the Buddha's profound and truthful words truly do not deceive anyone at all. There is nothing else. There is only the one vehicle. There is absolutely no second vehicle at all. This is truly the Buddha's ultimate teaching. It's the same for us here as well. We only and exclusively teach the Lotus Sutra, which is truly beneficial to everyone. During this process, every individual should carefully and thoughtfully use their own deep faith and wisdom and understanding to observe. In the meantime, our study of the Lotus Sutra may be affected because I have many things to attend to. Including our study of the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras, we may have to pause for about a month for now. We are thinking of possibly resuming in mid-August. We will notify you of the exact date. Right now, we still don't know for sure. As for the Lotus Sutra, I don't know how many people will be able to complete it perfectly. If you do just complete it perfectly, then on the very last day, if you have listened to all the classes in their entirety, I will also be giving everyone a special transmission certificate. This is also a very profound kind of karmic connection that truly binds us all together. It's the same in your lives as well, and in my own life too. Encountering the Lotus Sutra and studying it together with all of you, I personally think this is a very rare opportunity. During this process, there may be, for example, times when my health isn't good, or sometimes various other things happen, but we won't treat these as real obstacles. So we must absolutely make up our minds to definitely and completely finish this task. We absolutely will not allow any other external circumstances to cause it to pause, or indeed make it utterly impossible. So, as long as I am still in this world, I will complete the teaching of the Lotus Sutra for everyone and finish explaining it thoroughly to all of you. Therefore, we sincerely hope that everyone during the entire process of listening and receiving can also possess firm confidence and profound wisdom, which are invaluable attributes. If that is indeed the situation, then the substantial benefits and positive outcomes you acquire should be truly meaningful and deeply impactful. All right, we'll stop here for today.
Bandharangara Padmasada Bandharangara Padmasada